Alright, welcome to the end of Feybreak raid competition. So I have my 18 raid armies here, the ones that I have made over the course of, I guess it's been like 6 months of Feybreak. Made a couple of raid armies, going to be raiding with 13 pals in each army, because usually I have the 2 rescue pals. We have 2 Astegon armies, because one of them has double Blizzard Spike and one army is using Meteor Rain. So it's these 18 armies that I've made. Some of them I've tested quite a lot of different skill builds, so I know kind of what they are best with, while some others, like the Loupmoon army, I haven't really used since that first army video. So for some of them I've tested skill builds a little bit, but I am going to be running with kind of set and forget builds for most of them. Might add a couple of attempts for the others, but the main goal here is I'm going to do 2 fights with each raid army against Xenolord. I'm going to take the best attempt, and that is how they're going to score in this little competition, just to see how they do. The normal Xenolord, not Xenolord Ultra, no rescue pals, just these 13 pals. So they're going to be divided into 2 groups in the end. The ones that don't succeed in killing him, the ones that get wiped all 13, they're going to be judged by how much health they manage to do, how much damage they do to Xenolord. And then the ones that actually do win are going to be going by time. So that's just which one kills the boss the fastest, pretty much. So they will be judged separately there in the end. And then I might do this with some like Rio fights and Libero fights as well, but we're going to be starting with just this regular Xenolord raid. There might be some exceptions to the 2 fight rule if I feel like maybe I want to take this Loupmoon army and try it with the Frost Talon or something like that. Switch Diamond Rain to Blizzard Spike, but probably just 2 fights per army, because with these 18 armies, 2 fights per army is probably going to be 2 or 3 days of doing these fights. I'm also going to be resetting in case the fight bugs out, which it does sometimes, just if some pals fall through the floor, get stuck in walls, or Xenolord takes off or summons Comet pals on the cliffs outside. Then there's the Palpedia advantage, similar to kind of to the PvP tournament thing I did, or the PAL Arena tournament that I did, which is, since I'm doing it in Palpedia order. They just sorted in the order they come in the Palpedia. Fights might be like, I might learn stuff over the course of the tournament with how many pals running particular skills works best, or if some skill just doesn't seem as strong, there will be a slight advantage to pals appearing later as I adjust skill builds in the tournament. That's just the way it is for the fairness there. And yeah, I'm going to be cutting out the best fight for each one, so we're going to be jumping straight into it with this Chikipi army. And this Chikipi army isn't a totally legit army. It's an army that you need somebody to trade you a Chikipi bred from a tower boss. Before that got patched, they can be bred down to a Chikipi to give them Legend, Absolute Frost, Meteor Rain, anything like that. But I never captured a tower boss, so I did need to get it in a trade. And that's an example of one of the bugs. So that's a straight reset on this fight. Especially with smaller pals, Xenolord can sort of knock them over. And that's just an example of why I'm not doing more than 2 fights per army. Unless I really want to try something different, like a different skill build or one of the exclusive skills. I'm probably not going to use the Chicken Rush skill here. So it's just straight up Holy Burst, Airblade, and Absolute Frost. And we're just going to see Chikipi. It is the weakest pal in the game. I think it's tied down there with like Sui or something like that. Very low stats. It's also neutral, so it's going to be taking super effective damage from all the dark skills in the Xenovaders and Xenoguards. Normal Xenolord has 2 waves of adds. The first wave is just a bunch of Xenovaders, and the second wave it also includes 3 or 4 Xenoguards. So, it looks like Chikipi is going underneath the beam, which is pretty nice. But then they also do burn, they have pretty weak attack and defense. You need to get him around, I think it's around 9,000 or 920,000 health to get to the first stun phase, which is pretty much the goal for these weaker pals, is to just see if they can get him to that first stun phase and actually witness a couple of Xenovaders. So overall, I think this is like the weakest army you can make for this. Maybe I guess the Sui army is ice, so it would have a slight advantage. So this is sort of the baseline army. I do have like 50 Chikipis ready to go for this, but just for this video, I wanted to keep the regular 13, but you're probably not doing a lot of raiding with 13 Chikipis. It might have been a little bit different if I used all 50, but probably barely. Like 1 meteor rain would probably wipe them out. So out of the 2 attempts, this was the best one. It almost got to the ad phase, but not quite there. Then we have the Loupmoon Cryst army. It is a very weak pal in terms of total stats. I think it's still among like the worst pals in the game in total stats. But it is ice, so slight advantage there against like Chikipi. It does get this super effective filler skill, the ice missile here, which also it's a little bit better than pals that don't get the super effective skill. Then it's using double blizzard spike, bred that down from Frostallion. We got Diamond Rain, hopefully proccing a double wave of freeze. So it's very rare to proc and aggregate twice, but ice pals with Diamond Rain can possibly freeze twice in a fight if it goes on long enough. But other than that, you're not going to see a huge benefit there, but they do have that baseline damage. So Loupmoon Cryst, it does have like the total stats very weak, but it is like a glass cannon. It's super weak in terms of bulk, but it actually has pretty competitive attack stats. So with the rescue strategy, it's a bit better than it does in this particular fight, but it does still get burned. It takes full damage from some of the dark attacks. It takes full damage from all these ads spawning in. And then it's kind of interesting to me to see just how double Blizzard Spike performs here. So you can see if these Xenovaders sort of clump up, you can do a lot of damage with the double Blizzard Spike. It's not super effective, but it does also freeze them. So it's a little bit of a benefit compared to Absolute Frost, I feel, which tends to do very low damage against these ads. And we can already see that the Loupmoon army clearly doing better than the Chikipi army. It's actually getting to and past that first ad phase. So that's the first hurdle there, but it's clearly not gonna get the W. It's not gonna get the kill. Now it's all about competing with the Chikipis and the pals like that in how much damage they can do before they really fall out. So the exclusive skill, the one I was talking about earlier, Frost Talon, it doesn't seem to work super well. They all kind of just stack up. And then even if they do resist a lot of attacks, like just one Beam Slicer and Blast Cannon and this Charge Cannon here, all end up doing quite a lot of damage. So one thing I didn't mention as well was they were all running Siren of the Void. I was kind of hoping that there would be a balance patch. The Loupmoon Cryst army was one of the first armies I made in Feybreak. I was kind of hoping for the Holy Burst nerf and the shuffle there. I did breed them all with Siren of the Void. If it had happened, I was planning on running something like Icicle Bullet or Blizzard Spike or something like that, but it never got there, so the Siren of the Void was also holding them back a little bit, I feel. They could have done a little bit better, maybe even seen the second ad phase. Then we have Chillet, very comparable actually to the Loupmoon Cryst army in stats, or in total stats, but then they are a little bit bulkier in stats and have a little bit lower attack. So this is going to be a test about can Chillet with superior bulk. It does resist a little bit better as well. It gets the dragon element, so it's still going to take some burn damage, but it will resist all these dark attacks as well and the ads. They were also using Meteor Rain instead of double Blizzard Spike. This is going to be 13 Meteor Rain waves coming in, and hopefully, as you can see here, they're a little bit early. We're going to see during the course of this tournament just like the timing around Meteor Rain. It's not something I've tested a whole lot, it's just something I randomly noticed, and it's mostly if you add some player damage to the fight, or if you add more pals, or a little bit stronger pals, you get to this first stun phase a little bit quicker, and then you can time that second Meteor Rain wave with the ads. But it does have quite a long cooldown, so it depends a little bit. Like if you time it with the ads, it's extremely strong. Oftentimes you will find that it doesn't time with ads, and then something like Blast Cannon with a little bit shorter cooldown seems to work just as well. It depends a little bit. Is this the wave of Meteor Rain? It looks like it's mine. You can also confuse it a little bit because the Xeno guards that come in later have the basic Comet Strike. Xenovader himself has the Meteor Rain, but it looked like it did pretty well there to wipe them out. And the main goal with that as well is not only to wipe them out faster, which is nice, but it's also to prevent any usage of Holy Burst or Blast Cannon on the ads if you can avoid it. It's nice, but Meteor Rain itself is pretty bad against only Xenolord. It's purely there to wipe out the ads. You could probably do... This army has a full set of Meteor Rain. Could probably switch a couple of them to something like... you could breed another skill like Diamond Blizzard or Double Blizzard Spike. You could just add Diamond Rain, maybe a Lightning Streak, but for this one I felt like it worked out pretty well. You also don't want it to go too fast, so you get the ad phase before Meteor Rain is ready again. It's a little bit of timing there probably. What's better, where being faster isn't always the best option. So Chillet actually got to the second ad phase here. They seem to do a little bit better than the Loupmoon. So Chillet, like the bulk from Dragon and just a little bit more bulk, seems to work out in this case. But this is again without the Palpod strategy. If you do add Palpods to the mix, it's all about just pure attack. So Chillet army did pretty well. And now we're moving on to one of the big boys. Surprisingly early in the Palpedia. This is one of the favorites for the tournament, in my opinion. Just great elements for it. It's got the fire, so it doesn't get burnt. That's a big benefit. You might have seen in the Pal Arena tournament thing that burn and poison, they add up a lot, but hopefully, you know, with fire, not taking burn damage, it should be pretty good here. So they're running Lightning Streak. Maybe it would have been better with either Magna Crush or Beam Slicer, but Lightning Streak, I felt like Pals, from the tests I've been doing with this, Pals that move quickly, like up to the boss, and I feel Ryu does move pretty quickly. They sort of get in range and hit a lot of Lightning Streaks, do a lot of damage with it. And then Pals that kind of lumber in slowly, like Germantide Ignis and stuff like that, they tend to use Lightning Streak a little bit further away, it's a little bit less damage. So it's something to keep in mind, it's just move speed might be important. Like something like Jet Dragon will move very quickly between attacks and get in pretty close. So you can see here they're all close enough to hit a lot of Lightning Streaks, which really does add up compared to using it at max range, in which case maybe Beam Slicer, but Beam Slicer might have been good anyway, and the Magna Crush might have been good anyway, just to clear up the ads faster. I was hoping here that just Blast Cannon and Lightning Streak would be enough with just the bulk of Ryu. I didn't really test the other builds. I am tempted to go back here and test the Magna Crush exclusive skill and Beam Slicer instead of Lightning Streak. But Lightning Streak, on paper, extremely good skill. Might be a little bit worse if Xenolord is moving around a whole lot, if he's chasing the player or stuff like that. But you can see, at least in this example, I would say that Lightning Streak is one of those, like if you're chasing a fast kill, like the fastest kill, it's a really good option, but it might not be as consistent as other skills probably. If you get a fight where your pals just end up using it right on the edge. It doesn't seem to work super well with Palpods either, because the Pals will kind of be behind the Palpods, they'll get moved away from the boss a lot. But like a warrior from World of Warcraft there. But yeah, it depends a little bit. So Lightning Streak, probably not the best skill against the Ultra, if you're using Palpods and stuff like that. But it is viable here. And then like this is largely compared to Germantide Ignis as well. Ryu, slightly smaller hitbox, similar stats, like the similar attack stat. It does lose out on Legend, so they're using Impatient instead, which might actually be a DPS gain, but a little bit of survivability loss. But you can see none of them actually went down, just full health almost on all of them. Just very bulky Pal here. So as mentioned, one of the favorites going into this, together with some of those legends like Palladius, Ignis, probably Astegon, are the favorites to take home the tournament, or just to see which ones are better. And here we have the Astegon army. So pretty similar again to Germantide Ignis, if that's the baseline we are comparing to. They do lose out on the fire, so they will take burn damage. They also lose out on the resistance to dragon. So it's pretty similar stats, but just an element difference. And then they are running this Beam Slicer Blast Cannon combo. So no Lightning Streak here, just because I felt like they were pretty slow. They are close enough here that Lightning Streak would probably have been fine. I just felt like a lot of his attacks as well. Xenolord tends to make Pals fly away a little bit, and the Vaders and stuff like that. So I felt like Astegon would end up far away from the boss, but you can see here that probably isn't true for just this fight. Lightning Streak would have been fine up until this point, but we'll see how far away they get knocked back with this Cosmic Meteor. They seem to have a pretty low gravity scale, so here you can see they get knocked back, and then they are, I guess they are kind of fast, but not super fast. Maybe. And then they also have the stab bonus as well from the Beam Slicer. And I guess Beam Slicer is probably better against the ads than Lightning Streak. It depends a lot on how they're positioning themselves. But I feel like the Blast Cannon with Beam Slicer is killing these ads pretty quickly. And something about like... I was considering which pal to do this for, like if I was gonna fight Libero, Ryu, or Xenolord, and I decided on Xenolord just because of this ad mechanic. I feel like it adds a little bit to the fight, other than just pure DPS for the skills. You also have to consider like the area of effect of the skills and the skill order, and the cooldown timing with when the ads spawn. So it just adds a little bit of a layer. So if all your good attacks are on cooldown with the ad spawn, or if you're only using like single target hits, you will probably have like a lot of ads staying alive, tanking holy bursts, just slowing the fight down a lot. So that's for example why I feel like Meteor Rain is just really good, because it just removes all the ads, and then holy burst, which is the main damage dealer, can just be spent on the boss itself, dealing a lot of damage. I did want to test a little bit more with exclusive skill and stuff as well, but it tends to just, or Astegon tends to just fly away. Like he gets bounced around, it bugs out the boss a little bit when he's bouncing around. It just doesn't work out super well. So this attempt here got pretty close. They're all dead on that Beam Slicer. So almost a kill, a very low health remaining, like maybe 3 or 4 Holy Bursts was all that was needed. And then all these Astegons were also bred to use Absolute Frost, so I did do a fight or 2 fights with Absolute Frost as well. So this is one of those pals that got 4 fights because I wanted to try the other build as well. So instead of Blast Cannon, it had Absolute Frost. It got pretty low, but not as low as the previous attempt without Absolute Frost, which got down to like 48k, I think. Here we're still on 200. So just adding Absolute Frost, even if it was super effective, wasn't good enough to beat the Blast Cannon. And Blast Cannon also had stab, kills the ads a little bit faster. So for the first 5 armies tested, these are the current standings. We have Ryu. It won both its fights. It had 0 dead, and its best time was at 147 seconds. So that's the winning pal right now. And then we had Astegon getting super close. Chillet beating out Loupmoon Cryst, so Bulk won out against attack. And then we have Chikipi just bringing up the back of the pack. Not a super strong pal. It is the baseline for the weakest pal. So maybe Ryu is one of the better pals and Chikipi is one of the weaker pals. So we have that settled right from the start with the first 5 armies. And then I'm going to show the next 5 armies in part 2.